This podcast and any written materials related to it represent the opinions of Lisa Kays and Paula D. Atkinson, and our guests to the show and any written materials. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. It is for informational and educational purposes only, and because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to What If Nothing's Wrong With You? I am Paula D. Atkinson.
And I am Lisa Kays.
Lisa Kays. This is episode 10.
I can't believe it.
I know. I'm excited.
Time has flown.
It has flown. I feel like we've been inching towards this episode, and we have alluded to these topics over and over, and then we finally were just like, we just have to do this episode now.
Yeah. And maybe it's going to be a 4-parter. We don't know.
We're not
can't
sure.
Stop talking about it. And
Exactly.
Everywhere I go, everyone's talking about it.
Yeah. So this is going to be a very female identifying folks heavy episode because we're talking about friendship and menopause. And I know that we have listeners who do not identify as female, but it might be good for you to hear all of this because right?
It's an experience that many of your wives, sisters, mothers are having, will have, are will definitely have if they don't die. So.
Yeah. And it's not all women either. There's a lot of people who have uteruses, who will go through all of this. And it's best if you know about it.
Yeah.
So let's start with some chit chat. Lisa, you went to Aruba.
I went to Aruba for a week. It was my first trip that was not work related without my children or my husband.
Amazing.
In 9 years.
9 years?
Yes, in 9 years.
What was it
I've
like?
never left. Oh. So my friend has a timeshare in Aruba that she invited me to in 2011 when I graduated with my MSW, and then she re-invited me. I'm always on my best behavior because I will accept this invitation at any possible moment.
Absolutely.
But it was me and 2 girlfriends that have known me, I mean, for is it decades now? Differential decades, but it was like remembering I'm a person.
Yeah.
Because like I'm always a mother or a wife. Like there is a role.
Therapist.
And I was like, oh, yeah. Women, people, all of us need to be in the friend role more because they see you differently. Like
right.
I was just like, oh, I remember like who I am.
Yeah.
It was fascinating.
And all the parts
and
that
just
you get
collaborative.
to show up. Yeah.
One of my friends we went scuba diving. I'm a certified scuba diver now. So
amazing.
I know about that now. And she was like my dive wife. She planned all my dives. She figured out, she was like, here, go here to get your training. I was like, is this what it's like to have a wife? I really like having a wife. She was like, here, go here at this time. Tell them this. It was like literally being a little kid and having someone be like, I planned camp for you.
Oh my God.
Because otherwise I had no I would not have been capable. I didn't have the mental capacity to like Google this, figure it out. And she was already a diver and it was like life-changing and I could not have done it. And I was like, it must be amazing to have a wife.
I think it sounds great.
Want one.
Yes.
It's life-altering.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, and we will talk about when we talk about friends that they don't want us to rely on each other because then we won't take care of them. It's so much easier when it's just us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how it prolongs your life significantly, which we will get into. Good. Oh, I'm so glad you went. That's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. And now I know sign language for scuba diving. We were talking about maybe because I was like, I've learned, other friends of mine are like, every woman I know is becoming a scuba diver.
Great.
And I'm like, I think it might be the weightlessness, which we're going to get into.
Yeah.
But also you were like, also no one can talk to you. I was like, that is a compelling reason. I'm going to put that on the list. No one can talk to you.
That's
except
why
your dive instructor who's telling you what to do. That's
why I would go to silent retreats. But because for 10 days, no one was allowed to talk to me and I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone. It was amazing. It's your brain gets so quiet. Yeah.
And for therapists, I think especially, like, not that we don't love our clients. And but there is something about, and I've always had a thing for snorkeling, and what I love about it is I don't think about anything else. And scuba diving is like that times 12 because you have to keep yourself alive. So not only are you like, oh, an eel, oh, a lionfish, but you're also like, am I breathing so that my lungs don't explode? I mean, I couldn't think about anything else. I was in present time. It was amazing. And I only almost died once, maybe twice.
That is the part where I'm like, I'm out. No, thank you. No, thank you.
You can snorkel up at the top.
Snorkeling, I'm all about. If I can pop my head right out. Yeah, I was just telling, who was I saying? That when I lived in San Diego and I lived with all those surfer boys, one time one of the surfer boys was like, I'll teach Paula to surf. And like, he had been surfing since he was like 4. And so he took me out, and then I was getting pummeled, just abused by the like Mother Nature. And he's like, go ahead, stand up. And I'm like, you're bad at teaching people how. And I was like, this is not fun at all. Mother Nature doesn't give a fuck about you. I respect her for that, but
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you went. So tell me about, you introduced David to Janet Jackson after my appraisal of the situation. Tell me about how that was.
So I've been humbled on a multiple fronts about my age, which is also going to connect to our episode theme. So I was like, okay, I got the Janet Jackson tickets. We talked about it. We agree she's not horribly like explicit. Everything's fine.
No, it's not.
Finally, I had child appropriate concert tickets. And I go home and I'm like, David, I got tickets to this. She's an amazing dancer. I think you're going to love this. I put on Rhythm Nation, and he was like, turn it off. What is this? Can you imagine? You imagine to Rhythm Nation? Not even a minute. And I was like, are you sure? And he was like, Mom, this is bad. And I was like, okay. So then I thought, I'm going to put on Control. Maybe I went down the wrong road.
Sure.
I'm going to put on the Control video. He looked at that Control video and he said, what? He goes, what is going on with her shoulders? And I was like, David, those are shoulder pads.
Oh my God, rude.
And we used to think they made us look taller and slimmer. And we thought we looked great. LOL. And he was like, you have to turn this off. Also, what is on her ear? And I was like, it's a key earring, David.
It's like,
and he was like, why is she wearing a key earring, Mother? And I was like, David, do not talk to Gen Xers about keys. We have very complicated relationships with keys.
Yes.
So then you and I talked, and I was like, this isn't going well. And you were like, try All Right. Maybe we're on the wrong. So I put on All Right in the car, to which he screamed, there is nothing all right about
this child.
His dad was in the car next to me, and he started screaming out, Dad, like we used to. Remember when our parents would play oldies?
Yes.
Dad, she's making me listen to Janet Jackson. Help!
Rude.
But then his little BFF since kindergarten went to his piano recital. I said, Ava, I'm going to put on a song for you. And she was like, this is good. And David was like, yeah, well, I like the music.
Oh,
and so then I was like, I'm going to show you a music video. And she got in the car after the recital and she was like, David, it's really good dancing. And he was like, yeah, I know. I'm going to go to the concert.
What?
Peer pressure. Way to utilize the peer pressure, Mom. Good job.
The children have no respect. I was like, she is part of why you have
Beyonce.
Taylor Swift, Beyonce. He was like, no, it can't be. No respect. This is how our parents felt when they talked to us about Elvis.
Yeah. It's true. I hate Elvis.
I was like, oh, this is how they felt. Okay.
But there is no Ariana Grande without Janet. There is no Beyonce, right? Like,
they don't see it. They don't get it. I tried.
Rude.
I tried. But we're going to take him to Janet, and we're going to see how it's going to go.
Well, he'll love, the backup dancers are, she's, you cannot not be mesmerized by her dancing. I don't care how old she is. I don't care. No. Yeah. How rude.
And I told him, I was like, if you're bored, don't tell him. Or just, So I was like, someone else will use this ticket. There's someone around 50 who would love this ticket. So
someone born in the 70s will love this.
Would really like this ticket. Other thing I've learned.
Yeah, please go.
From the youth. So we finished Lost, epically
Yes.
And then he was like, well, what's next? And I thought, well, okay, what's kind of like Lost, like epic mystery, The X-Files.
Yes.
So we've started The X-Files.
Oh,
and I thought he was going to be bored because it is a little, it's a little slow. It's not
Yeah.
as exciting as whatever. But he's into it. But when the theme song came on, he goes, Mom, this is a YouTube song. And I said, he's like, what is this? I can't, because in the children's YouTube, whenever there's a mystery, it plays the X-Files song. And I was like, no, David, this is the X-Files song. And he was like, no, it's the YouTube mystery song.
That is for the YouTube children's parents so that they have a reference.
I was like, we invented this. This is our... He was like, it's the YouTube mystery song.
No.
So, yeah, we're old. We
are old. I love that this is becoming a purely Gen X podcast. That's fine with me. That's great.
Yeah, that's fine. There's enough of us. That can
There's
be
a shit ton of us.
But we are impressed because, none of us own watching the X-Files in our apartment. But I will say I was impressed because he looked at me and he goes, Mom, this show is sexist. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, why does it say starring David Duchovny, but then on the next screen, it does not say starring Gillian Anderson? Like, they don't have the starring. He was like, I think that's sexist.
It is.
Also,
he's not wrong.
I have noticed, he's not wrong. They are obsessed in season 1 of The X-Files with making Dana have a baby. That's just what I'm going to say. Dana Scully. There is an entire episode devoted to, and they do end it well with her being like, I think my career's okay. Like, I'm good. But every episode, she at least says, I wish I had a life. I wish I had a life.
Really?
You are solving mysteries with
aliens.
Older, and they're making her constantly be like, and her sister is like, when are you going to have a baby? It's like and I never noticed it, but I'm like, this is how we were brainwashed.
Oh, wait,
I do have to chime in. So when the show first started, Gillian Anderson did actually get pregnant. So they had to write it in
that she gets
into
pregnant.
The story that she gets pregnant.
Within like 2 episodes?
In what?
Within like 2 or 3 episodes, she got pregnant?
I know during the first season, maybe that was it. But also when they recorded back then, certain episodes could have been recorded like months in advance, and they put that as the first episode, or I'm not sure. But during the first season, I'm pretty sure during the first season, she got pregnant with her first child.
That makes me feel a little better.
But they could have hit it.
Because I knew she got pregnant.
Yes.
Kate Nally, she was always pregnant, and they were always like making her move a mattress or something.
Right. Or strategically placed in front of like a lamp.
The kitchen counter.
Like
I know.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because I remembered her getting pregnant, but I thought it was later, like season 3 or 4. And I was like, what is this?
Maybe
but either
you
way,
are right. Maybe you're right. Yeah.
But did she
because
get
it seems
pregnant
weird.
in the show? Did she have a baby?
During the show?
Yeah.
Oh, as a character?
Scully?
Oh, yes, she did.
Yeah.
She did?
But later.
Yes.
She got pregnant much later.
Way.
Yeah. But she had a real baby that they had to like do the whole hiding. I think this predated. I think this was the typical brainwashing that we all...
Like, if a woman has a career, she's deeply unsatisfied.
There's something missing.
Yeah.
There's something missing.
Right.
And I was like, wow, even Dana Scully, our STEM...
Right, our STEM queen.
Hero.
Hashtag STEM queen for life.
They were...
Well, and also, poor Dana Scully, she has to babysit fucking David Duchovny's character all day long and his emotional mess. And then she's supposed to have a baby and look for a husband after she has to manage all of his fucking anxiety. No, thank you. She needs to go home and take a bath and have a glass of wine and she's fine.
But she never has time because an alien always arrives whenever she's in a bath. That's just how it is. I'm like, when is she supposed to take care of a baby? Like, it's a very unpredictable job.
She does. And La Chupacabra could fall out of the sky any minute. How is she supposed to take care of an infant?
I mean... So anyway, those are my findings from reviewing the 80s and 90s with a current 9-year-old.
It reminds me of when I was it's so interesting how like everything gets to you now. I remember when I was in school, you and I were in social work school, not together, but at the exact same time. And I was trying to still listen to Snoop Dogg's album Doggy Style while in school for social work. And I was like, wow. this is so sexist. This is very misogynistic. Who knew? But it was so bad. And I was like, oh, yes, Snoop Dogg is ruined for me now. All right. Yeah. Happens.
It's sad. Awareness is sad. Like,
The
so
more
much. We
you
lose
know.
so much.
So much art we can't take in. Okay, so we're going to talk about friends and specifically female friendships. And we've been alluding to this a few times because Lisa and I have already said on this podcast maybe a handful of times that often, specifically when I have a woman who is very busy and very accomplished and she comes to me and she's like, I'm depressed. I don't know why. And I was like, do you have friends? Do you have fun? What do you do for fun? Right. And so often they're like, I'm sorry, what? What do you say? What are you talking about? So we wanted to talk about it. And the two topics of menopause and friendship go hand in hand because how many of us, myself included, have been talking to a friend about, I can't think straight, I can't sleep, I feel like shit, blah, blah, blah. And a friend says, have you gotten your estrogen checked? Have you thought about the fact that your ovaries are literally shutting down? Has it come to your awareness that you are going through inside out puberty right now and maybe it's having an effect on the way you are experiencing the world?
Because your doctor certainly isn't going
No.
to talk to you. Even my OBGYN was like, well, nothing we can do about all these symptoms. Okay, goodbye. I'm like, okay, cool. Like,
Wow.
I mean, and I had geriatric pregnancies. So I had IVF,
So rude.
then 2 babies. And no one at any point said to me, by the way, you are in a hormonal like nightmare period. My thyroid tanked. I didn't want to get out of bed for like 5 years. And no one said to me, like, because of course I was in a bigger body. Of course, I'm sure they were like, well, you're a little probably lazy. And I was like, I've actually always been a very active, athletic person. I don't want to move my body anymore because it hurts.
Yeah.
No one for 10 years said, oh, you know what? You might be.
Right.
In menopause, you have some hormonal thing. Not one medical professional. Even my OBGYN. Nobody. They were just like, well, okay.
And this
Good
is
luck.
why they don't want women to talk to each other because we will actually help each other and we will actually take over the world. Thank God. Yeah. So let's talk about friendship. And when we're talking about this, I don't want my fear about talking about this is that women and female identifying people will take it on as like one more thing that you have to do. And so I want to explore it as like all the things that get in the way of us having female friendships and talking about how important it is, but not as another like, oh God, this is another thing I have to do, but more as a like, this is all the ways in which the culture gets in the way of the precise way women are meant to live, which is with other women in, wait a minute. I didn't talk about the other thing that I wanted to talk about, the feminine utopia piece.
Sure.
So,
Talk
sorry,
about it.
we're backtracking just a little bit, but it'll lead right into this. So Lisa and I have been talking about, Lisa and I polo all day long about all these things, and we have solved all the world's problems 10 times over. And one of the things we talk about is that when the way we are supposed to live, and this is what I tell all my female clients do, is that the women live in the villages and they raise each other's children and they tell the men to go away.
Like I did in Aruba.
Exactly. And I was thinking about how I watch a lot of comic book movies because my life partner is really into comic books, and to make please chime in with this, but it feels so at the beginning of the Wonder Woman movies and at the beginning of the Mad Max movies, there is always a feminine utopia, and men write this shit. So it's like the men know that if the women were left alone, and if the women ran the world, everyone would have food and clean water. Like that's always a utopia. There's like freshwater streams, women's breasts are hanging out, babies are hanging on the breasts, everyone's clothed, everyone's taken care of. It's like the men know.
Yeah.
So what's the problem? Right?
Which is why they have to start wars.
Right.
So that it's like, no, you guys, you need us because we got to go like fight the war.
Oh,
okay?
that's right. Because freedom
That's why
isn't
we have
free.
to have the wars.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we wouldn't need them. And they're like, you need us to make the babies and fight the wars that we invented.
Yeah, right. I'm always fascinated. I'm like, I know this whole thing was written by a man, so on some level of his consciousness, he knows that everyone's needs would be met if we just let the women talk. So that brings us to women being friends with us. That we need friends, and not just. I'm not saying that gender is a construct. Gender isn't real. By the time the Gen Alphas have taken over, we will realize that all gender is nonsense. But when I'll talk a little bit later about what I think of when I think of like friendship, but it's not necessarily gendered, but it does mean that like women or female identifying people or queer people or whatever, you need to have people that can mirror back and have space, like you were saying, Lisa, for someone that you care about to show up in all of the selves, that there's not a expectation or a need or an obligation to be in a performance mode. And that's what we're saying when we're saying female friends. It doesn't have anything to do with male, female, precisely. So one of the things I've been thinking about is like all the shit that AFAB people are indoctrinated with when it comes to friends. And I've been talking to a lot of my female identifying clients or AFAB clients about this, like that we're supposed to have best friends, right? And that's like some sort of title or honorable space to carry in someone's life. That's weird. A lot of like, you should have best friends since kindergarten, right? That's an expectation. That you should have a solid best friend group, right? And we've known each other since kindergarten, and we're going to be amazing. There's a lot of stuff with like friend groups and who's in the group and who's out of the group, right? That your female friendship should be consistent and joyous. And then, so we're taught all of that as AFAB people. And then at the exact same time, we're taught that you should always prioritize romance. You should always prioritize making a man fall in love with you and getting a man to marry you. That's the most important thing. But also, you should have a best friend. It's like, there's so much.
But it's almost like the best friend role as it is portrayed in the culture is to support the finding and maintaining, and then later the bitching to about the man, right? Even the best friend role is seen, if you look at movies, in relationship to the dyad.
Right.
And the woman in the dyad. And like, it's
right. That you have your best friend. She's, by the way, she's always fat and ugly, right? It's like there all of this weird stuff. But then there's always like the internal judging of like, I don't have enough friends, right? Other people have more friends. There's like just so much shit. And because people socialized female are the maintainers of relationship, that we're in charge of not only our relationship, but if you have a male partner, you're in charge of your male partner's relationships too, that you have to manage their parents and I had a client who just told me that her husband's sister texted her saying, it's my parents, meaning the husband's parents' 50th anniversary this year. What are we doing? And my client was like, like, my parents are dead. I don't know what you're doing, right? But that expectation that it's her priority, it's her job to participate in this, and she loves her in-laws, but still, that's like her job. So there's just so much stuff involved.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost again like women bond and have relationships based on serving and caretaking. Like
Yes.
what are like that, and that it's like that's how they connect. And
Right.
it's like that is not, I think that is, women can get seduced into thinking like, oh, these are the relationships I'm supposed to have. And it's like, that's not how like friendships form, or is in like, oh, we're here together to take care of these other people.
Yeah. Right. And that reminds me of Gabor Mate's whole thing about like that women are always sick, and that the top 4 traits of the people who are always sick is that they have a overarching sense of responsibility. They are constantly over functioning. They are constantly concerned about other people's feelings, that is what causes cancer and fibromyalgia and autoimmune disorders and all of that stuff. And then women do it with each other, right? That they're like performing and that's, woo, yeah.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. So I was also to always blame the boomers which I will probably always be doing. So I have some friends here that we were talking about how our mothers had friendships. And so one of them was talking about, and I was diagnosing her mother in my head, how her mother was like, it's not a real friendship unless there's like deep emotional conversation, and you're going to fight with friends sometimes, and it's okay. And you should, that's just what happens. And conflict is a part. My friend was like, it took me a while to be like, I think she has a really warped idea of what female friendship is.
But I think that's also how, if that is your idea of relationships, you are going to tolerate a lot of possibly bad behavior and and I think that's actually what we say to women about men. Oh, marriage is work.
Yes,
marriage is true. Like, there's going to be a lot of fighting. So then women walk into this relationship, and when somebody becomes mean or abusive or negligent, or it's like, well, it's a lot of work. I'm going to work on this guy for the next 40 years or 30 or 20 or whatever my lifespan is, because it's going to be shortened. But it's a way that if that is your because we've been in therapy communities that teach that, and I've thought like, I guess I don't have real friends because I've never fought with my girlfriends ever. And I remember thinking a lot, like, I guess we're not really intimate. I guess I don't have deep friendships, but like, that's not traditionally.
No,
I don't want to fight. I don't want friends I fight with. I don't think I have any. I have long lasting female relationships. I don't fought with any of them. We might have little like, hey, misunderstandings or like, but
or
not like
you hurt my feelings.
Fighting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You hurt my feelings.
Like
okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So that was interesting. And so that was her boomer mother's idea of what friendship was. Another woman said that her mom had 0 friends, and she remembers being young and being like, oh, my mom's only friend is my dad. And she remembers being really young and recognizing that her mother was deeply lonely. I was like, well, that's intense. That's very sad, right? And I feel like I have women who come into my practice who are like, who have that sort of like, well, he's supposed to be my best friend. No, he's not. No, he's not.
And I even have men. I mean, I will say, I think that the reason we're talking about this is that I do think there's like an epidemic of people who do not have friends and don't know how to be friends. And it's across gender. I think the reasons for it are different for each gender, which is why. But it's the same sort of like, they feel like, again, something is wrong with me because I can't get everything I need from my partner.
Yeah.
And what I'm usually saying to them is, no, you can't. You need friends.
Yes.
Like, whether it's a guy or a woman, it's like, there is no person on planet Earth that can be, this is a myth.
Yes.
Any one person. And I was reading in Aruba because I read books, and that was exciting.
Nice.
There is this book called How We Show Up, which is brilliant, which breaks down and talks about the myth of how we're made to believe your ultimate partner should provide you everything, which is nonsense and is making us sick. And then this other idea, she was talking about like friendship ceremonies and ways that like for her 50th birthday, she had all of her friends and she did like a ceremony with her friends.
Awesome.
And I think people are like, I don't know if you're a person who's going to like take me to the hospital when I'm dying. Like we are not taught to talk about, and she talks about that in this book in a way that is so brilliant around like, we are only taught to do that romantically. Yeah. And people need to know, like, are you somebody who will take me to the doctor? Because then maybe I can ditch this bro because this ain't going well. Right. But we have no structure for that.
No. Oh, I love that. That reminds me of Alok, who a lot of us know. They are an incredible queer activist, non-binary person. They are friends with JVN. They're brilliant and funny, and they write brilliant books, and they have very funny stand-up. And they have a thing on their website that I love that says, I want a world where friendship is appreciated as a form of romance. I want a world where when people ask if we are seeing anyone, we list our names of best friends and no one bats an eye. I want monuments and holidays and certificates and ceremonies to commemorate friendship. I want a world that doesn't require us to be in a sexual romantic partnership to be seen as mature, let alone complete. I want thousands of songs and movies and poems about the intimacy between friends. I want a world where our worth isn't linked to our desirability, fuckability, our security, our monogamy, our nuclear quote unquote family, and our biology.
I love it. That's
Isn't
what she says in this book too. She's like, I want a world where somebody says, "Oh, are you seeing anyone?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, I'm seeing Paula, and I'm seeing Melanie, I'm seeing Jamaica," and I'm like that. We would list our friends.
Yes.
Like, this is bananas.
I feel like the queer community, I feel like we are better at that we prioritize friendship more than the people who think they're straight are allowed to. That I think the people who think they're straight are indoctrinated into the worship of the male female romantic relationship as the end all be all of our existence. I see it in my part, as you know, watch terrible housewife shows all the time, and it is so rampant in the housewife shows that these are like incredible women. I mean, I don't think their friendships are real, but like they could be, but they still are always, it's like the Bechdel test. They're still always talking about their fucking husbands. And I'm like, you really have nothing else to talk about? All of you bitches have money. You have clothing lines. You have wig lines. You have so much. You have children. You have so much going on. And you're still just talking about your husbands, or if one of them's divorced, like whether or not they're dating. So sad.
And I think it's also, I don't know if you hear this in your practice. Because I run groups, and this comes up in my groups a lot. And it happened to me where the minute I got married, I lost friends. It
Really?
felt like there was this like, oh, she doesn't need us anymore.
Really?
And I was like, no. Like, cause that's not ever how I can count them, that it was just kind of like, oh, we're done. And I think that is a cultural phenomenon. And the same thing happens with people have kids.
Yeah.
So and then I hear in my groups people talking about like, well, I don't think she wants to see me because like I don't have kids and she's busy and I don't know what to do. And this like, I don't even, like, nobody even knows how to be like, hey, do you want to hang out? It's like this, oh, I don't want to trouble her, I guess. And it's like, that's when people most need each other.
Yes.
And people just get this like divide. And I feel like that is culture. Like, well, she's married off. She has her person.
Ew.
Like, we're done here. And there's this abandonment that new mothers feel. They're like, I have mothers mourning friendships with their single or childless friends.
Wow.
Who to me are the people that keep me the most sane, because it's like, I do not need to talk about my child all the time. I'll tell you about his X-Files.
I love your stories about your child, but yeah.
But there's this like, oh, we're different, so now we're not doing this together. And I'm like, this is not good for people. It's so sad. And I see it like all over the place.
Well, it's sad. It's also dangerous. So I love that Jane Fonda lately has been on a campaign to just convince all women to have more friends. Great. I love Jane. I always loved Jane Fonda, but I love her right now specifically. And so she was on the Kelly Clarkson show, and she gave the statistic that to be a woman, an older woman without friends, is as bad for your health as smoking. And did you say it was smoking 15 cigarettes a day?
In How We Show Up, again, I'm going to plug this book till the end of time.
Great.
It is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of the effect on your lifespan. 15, we looked it up.
Wow.
That is almost a pack of cigarettes a day.
I love that you lived through the 90s and you don't know how many cigarettes are in a pack.
I don't know. That is how bad it is. So I think the pandemic is a great case study in this. Like, the amount that I was sick in the pandemic was, and I mean, we could say, well, that was COVID, but I don't get sick anymore. And I think it's, there's things I like don't do anymore that I think were helpful, like in terms of people I don't, groups I don't interact with. And I think being out in the world and restarting friendships, because I decided I have to prioritize that. But I think that's very real. I mean, the Surgeon General issued a report on loneliness. It's killing people.
Right. I have all these statistics. So according to the CDC, loneliness can increase the risk of heart disease by as much as 27%. Researchers at Harvard University have discovered a link between loneliness and the levels of blood clotting protein that cause heart attacks and strokes. And in 2021, 12% of Americans reported they had no close friends, and half admitted to have lost touch with one or more of their closest friends. We just don't. We live in a culture that does not we don't prioritize relationships. That's not news to anybody. But we don't. there's no space for it. It's you get married off, you make babies, and then that's it. And it is life affirming. One of the reasons why Jane Fonda, I love what she's saying, is that she's like, it is life affirming. She also says, which I like, is that she had her own journey. And I listened to her episode of Julie Louis-Dreyfus's podcast, which is a brilliant podcast, by the way, Wiser Than Me. I'll listen to that. But the episode with Jane Fonda is so good. And she talks about specifically that she wasn't in her 50s. It wasn't until she was in her 50s and after her 17th divorce or whatever, that she finally was like, I think these men are dumb. I think I should hang out with women. And it was really in her 50s that she's like, have you guys ever hung out with women? It's great. And she just, it's so much better. And she just started cultivating and she's been friends with Lily Tomlin for like 60 years or something, but they weren't really close because Jane Fonda was marrying men and divorcing them over and over and over. And then finally realized in menopause that it was better to hang out with other women.
Let's talk about the menopause,
Paula. Let's talk about it.
We do not have that much time, so we'll probably do it again, but let's briefly talk about the menopause and why it is important to talk to other women.
Exactly. So, Lisa and I have been talking about the symptoms of menopause, and Lisa polled me and she's like, "What? How many symptoms are there? Like 10?" I'm like, "There's 100 symptoms." Also, I think that some people don't know. I know women who don't know. The difference between perimenopause and menopause is perimenopause is when your ovaries are shutting down; they are no longer making eggs, and that can last a few years. It can also last more than a decade. I have a client who's 39 and she's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm, the same thing you and I talk about all the time.
Nothing is wrong with you.
Right. I'm anxious all the time. Suddenly I'm depressed all the time. And I'm like, you could need to go see what's going on with your hormones. It can last for a decade or more. So perimenopause is the phase of your life. It's like puberty that's leading up to menopause. Menopause is the part of your life after you have had your last period, right? If you think of like pausing the menses. So perimenopause is what I'm in. I'm 48 years old. It is moving up to menopause. I will be in menopause when after I've had my last period. I feel like people don't know that distinction very well. The thing that you and I talk about is women, and we're about to go through all of the symptoms, but women are experiencing all these symptoms in their 40s and 50s. And this is a time in a woman's life where she's usually juggling teenagers. She's usually at the top of her career. She's usually having aging parents, which the three of us have been talking about a lot of time. But there's usually the most that's expected of anybody in our culture is expected of women in their 40s and 50s. And this is right when their brain starts shutting down and their brain no worky.
And I recently listened to a podcast and I looked it up. It was on burnt toast they were talking about, and I found the NBC article. And I've been talking to a career coach who specializes in women with ADHD. We're going to do a workshop because what menopause affects is executive functioning and memory. And so 900,000 women left the workforce in a UK study because of menopause symptoms, because their brain, you can't do all of, and if you are a woman with ADHD who's been like holding it together by the skin of your teeth
your whole life,
that either you get a promotion or you have another kid, and this happens to men too. I mean, but the menopause thing just sets in, and all of a sudden women who have been highly functional their whole life suddenly are not. I had a friend of ours that this is why it's so important to talk to other women, and she literally burst into tears when I was like, oh, I went on estrogen and now my memory works again. And she started crying. And I was like, what happened? And she's like, I have been thinking that like I am getting Alzheimer's. Like I can't remember things. I can't. And she's like, I'm dropping balls. And I used to be able to. And she's like, I thought something. And I was like, no, girl.
No.
This is hormonal. She's like, probably. And she was I had no idea. And I was like, it makes your brain not work. This other woman, the woman that is the career coach, she was like, I just need you to know it gets better.
Yeah.
It's like puberty and it will end. And that was so helpful.
Yes.
Because it's scary. You're like, what is going on? I can't
It's
function.
terrifying.
And no, you go to your doctor and they're like, well, I don't know about, and it's like, okay, well, if an OBGYN is telling me this is not a thing,
Yeah.
then I guess there's something wrong with me.
There's
And
nothing
it's
wrong with you.
terrifying.
It's terrifying.
And you can't work anymore. Like, that's,
Well,
in
and a lot of
capitalism,
times you
that's
can-
quite dangerous.
You can work and then your mom gets cancer, or you can work and then your your dad breaks a hip or whatever, right? And then, as we were talking about, women are in charge of all the relationships, all the caretaking, all of it. And so, yeah, of course your brain can't do all of those things. My mom once said, and I think about it every day, my mom was a witch. And so she put herself into early menopause because she was like, I'm sick of these periods with like herbs and ritual. I don't know. So she was in menopause by 50. And I remember she was like 55 because I was like 25. And she said, Paula, it was all hormones. I was never crazy. I was like, whoa. And my little 25-year-old brain was like, I don't know what's going on there. But now I think about it all the time because I'm like, I feel like a crazy person.
Yeah. And I remember my mother, because I would have been, I think, like middle school, a teenager. And she also had a hysterectomy because she had horrible periods. And so it probably was a little early. And I remember her saying like, well, girls, I guess this is the end because I'm getting Alzheimer's. Because and for years, which was terrifying. But now I'm like, oh, this is what was happening to her. And no medical professional. It is something that affects every woman on the planet. And my GP was literally just like, you have to ask, I don't know anything about this. It's literally like a therapist coming out of therapy school.
Right.
And it's like, well, I learned everything except depression. I can
heard
do
of
anything.
Schizophrenia. Let me Google it.
And it's like, well, depression affects a lot of people. That's an interesting omission. And like, I'm not mad at him.
Right.
But like, what? It affects literally it'd be like a pediatrician being like, I can do everything except puberty.
Right.
I don't do puberty. What?
Well, it's kind of your job. Yeah.
It's like,
right. Have you seen
a big chunk of a child's childhood?
Have you seen the TikTok of the woman who like, I've never studied the female body? Have you seen it? No. Oh, it's so good. I'll send it to you. It's amazing. This woman, she did the TikTok of you're just such a good dad, where she like does the million things and then she's like, and then your mom said, you're such a good dad. She has a new one that's like never studied the female body. Amazing. Yeah. So I'm going to go over the not at all exhaustive list of symptoms so that if you are a woman from the age of 39 to 55, which is so many people.
Well, and why don't you go over the ones, since we can't go over all of them,
right?
That look like mental health symptoms.
Yes, that's
because
what I was
the other thing that is important that we are noticing is, if a woman comes to me with weird onset anxiety for the first time in her life at 48, I might want to put her on estrogen. Well, I wouldn't put her on anything. I'm not a medical doctor, but I might say you might want to go look at some estrogen instead of an SSRI, because the estrogen might also fix her urinary incontinence, her body aches, her weird itchy skin. I mean,
did you know that your skin itches when you're in perimenopause?
Yeah, I had that.
I had that too. I thought I had scabies.
I thought I had an allergy. I went on a stupid elimination diet.
Right.
I think it was just the menopause.
And you know who told me? Stacy London. Stacy London on Instagram was like, did you know itchy skin is part of menopause? My story too is that I started getting symptoms right after my mom died. So I was like, am I going insane? Am I in grief? Right? Yeah. Because this is the time of life that our parents die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the things that you think you're going crazy, but it's not your fault, and you might go to a psychotherapist for, but it might just be that you need estrogen or you need some sort of hormone replacement surgery. Therapy.
It's just a patch.
It's not surgery.
Paul and I wear 20 patches a day.
If I could put them on my forehead, I would.
I'm like, I just get irritable and I add one in my face.
So fatigue. But also insomnia. I want you to notice that both of these things, right? So you can't get out of bed, but also you can't sleep. Depression / intrusive thoughts. Anxiety / intrusive thoughts. Headaches, needing more sleep. Again, insomnia. The brain fog, difficulty concentrating, memory loss. And the part around, like you were saying, our friend, like that. I used to be able to multitask the fuck out of everything. I used to be able to manage this plus this plus this plus this. And all of a sudden, like I followed you yesterday and was like, I scheduled somebody for 10 a.m. I was on my way out the door to go to the gym at 9:30 a.m. And I've never forgot. I don't forget that I've scheduled people. That's not, but this is the kind of thing that starts happening. Mm-hmm. And then other things that I think women don't know is like the itchy skin. Had no idea. Weight gain, we all know. But also I have been in a mysterious circumstance of like lower back pain for years. Joint pain.
That one, I had that one.
Mm-hmm. Joint pain. Your joints can
and
ache.
The joint pain for me was so bad. I didn't want to walk across the living room. I mean, it affected how I raise my kids.
Yes.
And then you have everybody being like, well, you have to exercise. And it's like,
weight.
I can't exercise because it hurts my body.
Yeah.
And literally a week of estrogen. And I'm like, oh, that's gone. I'm out walking like I'm like, oh, imagine it was this.
Right. I had MRIs. I had x-rays on my back because I thought sure that there was some vertebrae was way out of place or something. No, it's just perimenopause. So I had a client just the other day. I'm having so many intrusive thoughts. I'm so scared that she's like, I can't stop thinking about the fact that my mom is going to die, which your mom will die. That might happen, but she can't. She's like, I can't function because I can't stop thinking about it. I was like, how old are you?
My new favorite question. How old are you?
Uh-huh.
When did your mother start menopause? Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So if you are between the ages of 38 and 58 and you suddenly feel like your depression has skyrocketed, your anxiety has skyrocketed. This happened right after my mom died. It just coincided. I was in a constant anxiety attack about people I love dying. The planes are going to crash, all of this stuff. Nobody said, oh.
And the thing is, all these life events.
Yeah.
When do the major life, like now women are having children later. So like you had, maybe I'm just reacting to, I was like, I guess this is what having children is like. No one else seems to be, because everyone in my mother's group was like 30, 35. Right. I was on the upper cusp. But you kind of, parents die like that. This is the age at which you have these massive life events and you think, well, I guess I'm just not recovering from that. And it's like, no, also you have this hormonal storm happening.
Storm
to you.
Is a good word. Yes.
And the other thing I thought about this today is it also makes me sad how many women spend so much time, energy, mental energy trying to keep their body the same.
Oh God.
And I'm like, I realized today, I'm like, that is like a girl trying to be going into puberty, being like, I'm not going to get my period or have boobs. And it's like, you can't control that unless you're going to do something horrible to yourself, like have an eating disorder. But like, I see women expecting of themselves
to look like they did when they were 30.
To be the same. And it's like, this is a puberty. We don't know what you're going to look like on the other side. It's like when Superman spins around, I feel like it's the time Superman is spinning. And I do think we all emerge with superpowers, but like,
we do.
That's a weird time.
Yeah.
Spinning in the phone booth. And that's what this is.
I love
it's
that
like,
reference.
I don't know who's coming out. Who's coming out of the phone booth?
Well, and also, like I
but
say to my clients, like I say to my clients every day, all day long, your body is in a constant state of fluidity. It is never the same size 1 week to the next. It might be very slight. The idea that your body is going to stay the same size your whole life is so weird. Your body is nature. Nature is not the same shape ever. It's so weird. Yes, exactly.
Thank goodness, because that's why my flowers grow.
Exactly.
Or die, as they may be. Paula, we have to stop.
I know, we have to end.
We are at time. We have to stop.
Yeah, we warned Mika that we could talk about both of these topics for 1,000 years. So thanks everybody for listening. If you have any questions, if you have any weird perimenopausal, menopausal symptoms that we didn't talk about, by all means tell us. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Always, you can follow me at Paula D. Atkinson. You can follow Lisa Kays at the Lisa Kays. You can always message us. If you have an idea for a topic for a episode of What If Nothing's Wrong With You, we would love to hear it. Any feedback, anything, any Janet Jackson songs that you want David to listen to? Yeah.
Well, and to lead us out, I took a stand-up comedy class just for female and non-binary people.
Yes. Yes.
And one of my classmates had a set on the menopause that I love. So we're going to take you out with Jewel Everhart telling us about menopause. She's also going to be one of my dates to Janet Jackson.
Amazing.
So enjoy some
Yay.
menopausal stand-up.
Yay. See you next time.
ADHD non sequitur transition, menopause. Yeah, I said it again. I'm wet where I'm supposed to be dry. I'm dry where I'm supposed to be wet. And I pee all the time. I pee when I laugh. I pee when I cough. I pee when I sneeze. I'm like one of those old school baby dolls that you squeeze and they wet their diaper. I'm like a pee hole with a non-discernible vagina. I recently became non-binary, legally. There was no plan. I have ADHD. There's never a plan. I just went to the DMV and to get a driver's license. It was like male, female. I'm like neither, both, non-binary. Sex, yes. I know pronouns can be confusing. I mean, I guess I don't know. Well, fuck that. I don't care. But if we're being really honest, I don't even know what a pronoun is. I'm the first generation with grammar check. And if you think it's confusing, try being me. Walk with me. When I was little, I was obsessed with Mary Poppins and Batman. Bag, belt, you follow me? So as a little girl, I wore a backpack. And then I was a straight girl who carried a purse. Then I was a proud lesbian who wore her uniform prerequisite cargo pants. And now I recently started wearing these vests. I used to call it my divergent dyke purse. Now I just call it my people purse. You can laugh, but bitch needs a Band-Aid, a banana, or a blunt. You know who you're coming to. So I get sir-ma'amed all the time. Not familiar? How can I help you, sir, ma'am? Thank you, sir, ma'am. It's always awkward for them. So menopause for the win, I grew a beard to make it much more confusing. Now when I get sir, ma'am, I'm just like, sir, ma'am. Yes, I am.